There is a space inside you that only speaks when everything else falls silent, a place you visit every single night, but almost never truly hear. It is not the morning, with its lists and its plans. It is not the afternoon with its noise and its doing. It is that fragile, quiet borderland, the last few moments of consciousness, right before the world dissolves into sleep. When the screens go dark, the shoulders finally drop, and the relentless chatter of the day fades into a whisper. This is the threshold. This is when the protector, the persona you've worn all day, grows weary, and something far older, far deeper, begins to stir. According to the pioneering psychologist Carl Jung, sleep is not merely a biological reset. It is an active, symbolic doorway. What you bring with you across that threshold does not get left at the door. It sinks. It settles into the fertile soil of the psyche, where your deepest habits take root, your unspoken fears are tended to, and the blueprint for tomorrow's you is quietly, invisibly, drafted. You may not register it consciously, but the emotional climate you carry into slumber dictates the weather of your waking hours. Fall asleep amidst mental clutter, and you rise into a fog. Surrender to sleep holding tension, and you spend the new day already exhausted. A single persistent thought at this pivotal moment can alter the entire trajectory of your feelings and actions. So what should we do with this potent space? How do we cross this nightly threshold in a way that doesn't just replay yesterday, but begins to gently, silently, rewrite tomorrow? Stay with me, because this subtle, overlooked ritual could be the most transformative minute of your entire day. 1. The guardian sleeps, the depths awaken. When the conscious mind quiets, the unconscious begins its dialogue. Night is not loud, but it is profoundly conversational. Not in clear sentences, but in the language of sensation. A tightness in the chest, a vague restlessness, a feeling you can't quite name. Your day may have been perfectly productive, every task completed, every role performed. Yet, the moment you lie still in the dark, a subtle unease rises. It's not quite sadness, not quite anxiety. It's a whisper that something is incomplete. Something was missed in the daylight rush. This moment reveals a fundamental truth. You are not oneself, but a collective. By day, you live through the part Jung called the ego, the capable manager of your life. It helps you function, make decisions, present a coherent face to the world. It's necessary, but it is also a diligent editor, constantly setting aside what doesn't fit the narrative, the vulnerable emotion, the inconvenient desire, the memory that complicates the story you tell about yourself. That material isn't deleted. It's archived, and in the daytime, life provides a constant stream of noise, emails, conversations, distractions, that keeps this archive securely locked. But at night, the energy required to maintain that control dwindles. The editor grows tired. The archive doors begin to creak open. This is not a failure. It is an invitation. Jung saw the unconscious not as a dark cellar to be feared, but as the vast foundational bedrock of your entire being. It holds everything you have ever experienced, felt, or been, including the parts you've never fully acknowledged or given voice to. When the daytime roles are retired, the unconscious sends signals, not to sabotage you, but to restore a sense of wholeness. Consider the person who navigates the world with impeccable strength. They are the rock for others, unshakable in control. And yet, alone at night, they may stare at the ceiling, gripped by a formless weight. There's no specific problem to solve. It's a signal. The ego has been working overtime, while other essential parts of the self have been patiently waiting, unheard, in the wings. The unconscious doesn't argue with logic. It communicates through the ache you can't locate, the sudden memory that floats up unbidden, the symbolic fragment of a dream. If you dismiss it as just stress or overthinking, you miss the message. Jung famously wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." He wasn't speaking of doom, but of autonomy. If you are unaware of these inner currents, you are not steering your life. You are being steered by patterns laid down long ago. The pre-sleep moment is when these patterns surface, unobscured. Picture your mind as a mountain lake. All day, the winds of activity stir the surface into choppy waves. You see only the turbulence. But as evening falls, the winds cease. The water grows still and clear. For the first time, you can see deep below the surface, the ancient rocks, the hidden currents, the life teeming in the depths. They were always there. The stillness simply allows you to perceive them. This is the gift of this threshold. The unconscious emerges not to weaken you, but to make you more complete. True maturity, Jung proposed, arrives not by perfecting our light side, but by courageously making peace with our entirety. We rarely have the internal quiet for this during the day's performance. Only when you stop trying to be fine can your deeper self reach you with honesty. Many believe the mind is most fragile before sleep. Jung argued it is actually most authentic. You are off duty. You are not performing. The filters are down. What arises in this space, therefore, carries a different weight, a deeper truth than your daytime strategizing. To ignore it is to ignore a compass pointing you toward your own wholeness. And if you think this nightly encounter only affects your dreams, you're missing the most powerful part. What happens in this quiet space doesn't stay there. It travels with you, directly shaping the person who opens their eyes tomorrow morning. 2. The seed you plant in the dark. What you carry into sleep is the seed you will harvest upon waking. Once you understand that this liminal space is not a void but a fertile field, a critical realization dawns. The night does not end your day. It extends it in a different form, softer, more diffuse, but incredibly persistent. Your state of being at the threshold is not left behind. It is carried forward, like a subtle scent on your skin into the new day. Before sleep, you lack the alertness to curate your feelings. You can't muster the energy for optimistic self-deception. You are no longer playing the role of the resilient one, the cheerful one, the one who has it all together. Your inner state is raw, unedited, and it is this raw material that the unconscious absorbs as its primary data. Sleep is not an eraser. It is a conveyor belt, moving the emotional substance of your evening into the foundation of your tomorrow. During the day, your conscious mind can compartmentalize. You can stay busy to avoid a feeling, rationalize to neutralize a fear. But the unconscious doesn't operate in compartments. For it, life is a continuous river. An emotion you haven't fully felt doesn't vanish when you close your eyes. It merely flows into a deeper aquifer, where it will continue to feed the springs of your mood and intuition when you rise. This is why you can wake up with a familiar, nameless heaviness before anything in the new day has happened. Conversely, you can wake with a surprising lightness, even amid difficulty. That difference isn't manufactured by the morning's news. It's the emotional aftertaste of the state you surrendered to the night before. Night and day are not separate chapters. They are a single, flowing narrative. Jung emphasized that the unconscious is a meticulous record keeper. It notes what has been left unresolved. A difficult conversation you shrugged off, a creative impulse you stifled, a moment of sadness you hurried past. These don't get discarded. They are filed in the inner archives. And from those archives, they influence your instincts, your reactions, your very perception when you wake. You may not remember the thoughts you had as you drifted off, but you will feel their resonance throughout the coming hours. Jung saw dreams as the small hidden door in the deepest and most intimate sanctum of the soul. That door doesn't lead somewhere foreign. It leads you back into what is already, quietly, alive within you. A dream doesn't invent new material. It processes the material you brought to the threshold. And whether you recall the dream or not, that processing leaves an imprint on your waking emotions. Here is a crucial, often missed, point. The unconscious does not judge states as good or bad in a moral sense. It simply recognizes familiarity. If you routinely cross the threshold in a state of anxiety, the unconscious learns to operate from an anxious baseline. If you habitually arrive there feeling unseen or lacking, lack becomes the default setting. It's not a punishment. It's the psyche adapting to what it believes is the permanent environment. This is the hidden engine behind life feeling repetitive. You may set new goals, adopt new mantras, force new behaviors by daylight. But if, night after night, you return to the same inner climate of worry, resentment, or emptiness, you are watering the old roots. You're redecorating the house while the foundation quietly settles further into familiar, unstable ground. So what is the practice? It is not forced positivity. Jung was deeply skeptical of simply suppressing the negative. The practice is one of gentle, non-judgmental recognition. In the last quiet minutes, create a space of true pause. No device, no distraction. Just ask, with genuine curiosity, what is the weather inside me right now? Can you name it? A low-grade anxiety? A weary exhaustion? A peaceful calm? A tangled mix you can't untangle? The simple act of naming, of bringing the vague fog into the light of awareness, is profoundly powerful. When a state is consciously acknowledged, it begins to lose its silent, automatic control over you. You are no longer unconsciously carrying it into tomorrow. You are choosing to see it, and in that seeing, you change your relationship to it. You are not ending your day by force. You are closing it with awareness. The difference is not in whether the day was good or bad, but in how you cross the border between today and tomorrow. Do you stumble across it blindly, or do you step across with intention? But this act of turning inward, of stopping the noise, has a surprising initial effect. It doesn't bring immediate peace. It often first reveals a different landscape altogether, one that we spend our entire days trying to outrun. 3. What emerges when the noise stops? The shadows appear only when you cease your distraction. The moment you stop trying to fix your state, stop trying to manufacture peace, and simply allow yourself to feel what is actually there, something else surfaces. Not relief, but a kind of inner darkness. Thoughts you've avoided, emotions labeled negative, parts of yourself you've disowned in the light of day. It's vital to understand. This darkness doesn't rise because you are broken. It rises because you have finally stopped running from it. Our daytime lives are masterclasses in distraction. Task after task, screen after screen, notification after notification. Each time an uncomfortable feeling twinges, we have a reflex to look away, to scroll, to busy ourselves. This isn't a character flaw. It's a modern survival tactic. Distraction allows us to keep moving. But at the threshold of sleep, distraction fails. The external world recedes. The body stills. And what you've been outrunning all day finally catches up. Jung called this collected material the shadow, not evil, but the sum total of all those parts of ourselves that we've deemed unacceptable, weak, shameful, or contradictory to our chosen self-image. By day, the bright lights of activity hide these shadows. When the lights go off, they are not newly created. They are finally visible. Jung offered a clarifying statement. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. He wasn't advocating for wallowing. He was pointing out that wholeness is impossible while we exile entire portions of our own humanity. What you refuse to see is what controls you from the shadows. There's an echo of this in ancient myth. The goddess Persephone did not descend into the underworld as a punishment for weakness. Her journey into the depths was a necessary phase of her transition from girlhood to queen. from a singular identity to a more complex, integrated one. The myth reminds us that certain kinds of maturity are only forged in the descent, in the confrontation with what lies beneath. Even modern neuroscience hints at this. When the brain is released from constant external stimulation, a network called the default mode activates. This is the system linked to self-reflection, memory integration, and sense of identity. In essence, when you stop distracting yourself, your brain naturally turns inward, and what it often processes first is not what's pleasant, but what's unresolved. So this darkness doesn't appear because you're thinking poorly. It appears because you are finally quiet enough to hear what's been waiting. This is why so many people are afraid of silence, of true stillness. It's not laziness. It's an intuitive knowledge that in the quiet, something real will ask for their attention. Imagine your psyche as a sunlit room. By day, it's full of people, movement, conversation. You don't notice the corners shrouded in shadow. At night, the guests leave, the lights dim. The shadowy corners were always there. Now, with nothing to look at, you can finally see them. They aren't necessarily dangerous. They've just been ignored. The goal is not to violently excavate the shadow. It's simply to stop running long enough to acknowledge its presence. When it emerges, the practice is not to argue with it or shove it back down, but to observe, without judgment. This, too, is a part of my experience. The shadow often wears the face of emotions we've been taught are bad. Envy, a quiet rage, profound insecurity, a sense of being fundamentally insufficient. By day, we argue them away with logic. At night, they need no logic. They simply are. And if you can sit with them, you might discover that behind every shadow emotion is an unmet need, a disowned part of you crying out for acknowledgement. Many fear that facing this will make them worse. Jung believed the opposite. Not facing it is what gives the shadow its destructive power. When repressed for too long, it doesn't vanish. It leaks out sideways, in unexplained irritability, in self-sabotaging choices, in projecting our own denied traits onto others. You find yourself repeating patterns and can't understand why. The threshold of sleep offers a daily, gentle opportunity for integration. The shadow appears not to punish, but to be invited in from the cold. This doesn't require solving it tonight. It only requires the courage to stop distracting yourself for a few minutes and to listen. And as you practice this listening, something else begins to crystallize in that quiet space. Not just a feeling, but a picture, a final, powerful image that will define your entire tomorrow. 4. The last picture of the day. The final image you hold at night becomes the lens through which you see tomorrow. When you stop fleeing the inner weather, when you cease filling the silence with noise, the mind's activity begins to shift. It moves from processing scattered emotions toward holding a singular, powerful impression, an inner image, not necessarily visual, but a felt sense, a symbolic snapshot of you and your place in the world. This last image before sleep becomes the template, the filter, through which you will experience the coming day. Jung understood that the psyche speaks most fluently not in words, but in symbols and images. The conscious mind loves to analyze and label. The unconscious communicates in pictures that carry whole worlds of meaning. In the tired stillness before sleep, consciousness relaxes its grip, and the unconscious has the opportunity to impress upon you a background image, a defining sense of who I am when no one is watching, and nothing needs to be done. Ask yourself, silently, what is that image for you? Is it of someone always catching up, never quite arriving, someone fundamentally lacking, someone perpetually performing even for themselves? Or is it of someone on a path, learning, growing, even in the stillness? You don't need to answer intellectually. Your unconscious is already answering for you, night after night, etching this image into your psychological substrate. I recall a client, immensely successful and respected. By day, he was the picture of competence and calm, but he confided that his nightly image was always the same. Standing alone on a vast, empty plain at dusk, with a long road behind him and only haze ahead. No drama, just a profound, quiet loneliness. He woke each morning with an unshakable sense that he was utterly on his own, that reliance was not an option. No event caused this. It was shaped and reinforced by the recurring image he brought into sleep. For Jung, this isn't random. The unconscious uses these images to form what he called our attitude, our foundational stance toward life itself. The last image is like the default wallpaper on the screen of your mind. Every new experience of the day is viewed against that backdrop. This is why two people can face identical circumstances and have radically different responses. Their inner background images are not the same. Jung wrote that dreams are spontaneous products of the unconscious psyche. They are not random. They are revelations of the real position we occupy in our inner landscape. The images that surface at the threshold are often the clearest, least filtered reports from that landscape. Think of it as setting the lock screen on your phone. You interact with apps and messages all day, but every time you check the time, that background image is there, subtly shaping your visual field. Your last nightly image is your mind's lock screen. The power of this isn't in complexity. Often the image is simple, a feeling of being chased, of standing still, of shrinking back. Its simplicity is what makes it so potent. The unconscious works in powerful symbols, not complicated stories. When a symbol is repeated nightly, it becomes the new normal of your self-perception. If you wake day after day with the same emotional flavor, it may not be that your life is stagnant. It may be that your last image of the day hasn't changed. And for Jung, there can be no fundamental shift in your life until this unconscious background image begins to shift. The practice here is not naive visualization of perfect scenes. It is, again, conscious recognition. Notice the image or feeling picture that arises. Stay with it. Ask it, gently, what are you trying to tell me about how I am living? When an image is brought into the light of awareness, it begins, slowly, to transform. You are no longer shaped by it in a blind, automatic way. That final image is not a meaningless byproduct of fatigue. It is an honest mirror, reflecting your most intimate relationship, the one you have with yourself. And the person who greets you in the mirror each morning is, in large part, a creation of that nightly reflection. This process of listening, acknowledging, and witnessing isn't a repair job for a broken self. It is something far more beautiful. It is the quiet, daily journey of homecoming. 5. The nightly pilgrimage back to yourself. Each night is a silent step on the journey back to your own wholeness. By now, you may sense a different paradigm for change. Life doesn't pivot solely on grand, daytime decisions. The most enduring shifts are crafted in these quiet, repeated moments. Moments so routine we sleepwalk right through them. Each night, as you close a chapter of doing, you are offered a step on the most important journey there is, the journey back to the integrity of your own being. Jung named this process individuation, the lifelong project of becoming not who you should be, but who you inherently are. Not a perfect being, but a complete one, no longer fractured into acceptable daylight self and exiled nighttime self. Crucially, this journey happens not through force of will, but through permission. Permission to be present with yourself, especially when there is no audience. By day, life demands an outward orientation. You react, adapt, fulfill roles. You have to be somebody. At night, those roles are shed. There is no one to perform for. This is when the person behind the roles can finally breathe. And each time you end a day without turning away from what you find in that space, you take a step closer to your reality. This pilgrimage is silent. There are no fanfares, no finish lines. It is like walking in a deep forest at night. You can't see the destination, but with each step you are undeniably farther from where you started. Every night, whether you are aware or not, you are on this path. The question is whether you walk it consciously. Jung himself lived this. After his break with Freud, already renowned, he entered a period of profound inner turmoil. By day, the esteemed doctor. By night, assailed by powerful dreams, visions, and emotions that terrified him. His choice was radical. He did not suppress them. He turned toward them. He documented them in what became the Red Book, a map of his descent into and dialogue with his own unconscious. His transformation wasn't a single epiphany. It was a nightly conversation over years. This reveals a core truth. The journey back to yourself is not an upward climb to a peak. It is an inward descent into depth. And the deeper you go, the more you realize you don't need to become someone new. You need only cease abandoning who you already are. Modern science lends its own language. The mind's most integrative work doesn't happen during focused effort or constant stimulation. It happens during rest, when the nervous system can downshift. In the slow, quiet rhythm before sleep, the brain begins to weave together disparate threads of experience, mending fractures you may not even know are there. Jung left us with a deceptively simple sentence. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. The privilege is not fame or fortune, but authenticity. Becoming yourself isn't an act of addition, but of gentle subtraction, peeling away the roles worn too long, the masks adopted for survival, the images that no longer serve the soul beneath. Each night, as you lie in the dark with nothing to prove, no next task to perform, you move closer to the part of you that exists without performance. That part might be tender. It might not have words, but it is real. And it is the cumulative effect of these real nightly moments that creates profound, lasting change. Not a change in personality, but a change in the fundamental relationship you have with yourself. The practice for this final phase is profoundly simple. In those last moments, place a hand gently over your heart. Feel your breath rise and fall beneath it. Feel the weight of your body on the bed. Don't try to change anything. Don't seek any particular state. Just be present, fully with whatever is there. The calm, the chaos, or the quiet ache. This full, honest presence is itself a step home. You may not notice results immediately, but over time, you will feel subtle shifts. You'll react less hastily to old triggers. You'll feel less strain behind your social roles. The need to constantly prove you're okay will soften. You'll begin to feel you are living your life, rather than perpetually preparing for it or recovering from it. These changes don't spring from daytime discipline. They grow from the integration that happens in the dark. Therefore, see sleep not as an escape from life, but as a return to the part of you that doesn't need fixing, only acknowledging. When you begin to see this nightly threshold as a sacred re-entry into yourself, you realize you are never as far from home as you feared. Perhaps you now see it. The trajectory of your life is not decided in the glare of daytime effort, but in the gentle gloom of evening surrender. The moment before sleep, when every mask is laid aside, is the moment you stand closest to your own truth. And that moment, repeated, is what silently sculpts the you that wakes. Carl Jung did not frame transformation as a sudden, explosive event. For him, it was a quiet alchemy, where the conscious mind gradually learns to heed the whispers of the deep. Each night, when you choose not to distract, not to numb, but to listen, you allow the lost parts of yourself to find their way back. And when your wholeness is present long enough, your life cannot help but bend toward its natural, authentic shape. You don't need a grand meditation before bed. You don't need to solve your entire psyche tonight. The only thing you must carry across the threshold is honesty. Honesty about the feeling that lingers. Honesty about the image that forms. Honesty about the quiet gap between the life you're living and the soul you are nurturing. Jung believed this raw honesty, not positive thinking, not sheer willpower, is the bedrock of a life lived in full color. It is how you stop calling your unconscious patterns fate and start becoming the author of your own story. If this perspective has shifted something inside you, if it's made you look at your own evenings differently, let me know in the comments. Share just one word for the feeling you most often carry to sleep. Sometimes, seeing you're not alone in that feeling is the first step toward changing it. And if you want to continue this exploration into the depths of the psyche, into integration, the shadow, and the art of becoming whole, consider subscribing. The journey inward is long, and it helps to travel with guides. Sometimes, the most significant change begins not with a roar at dawn, but with a whisper in the dark.